Good evening, everyone. I am Connie Szabo-Schmucker. I'm Advocacy Director here at Bicycle Garage Indy. And thank you for joining us virtually for Spotlight on Bicycling. And tonight we're going to hear from Laura and Dave Bruckner about CIBA Foundation. Next week, we will have some people from 913 Sports, and the following week on March 8th, will be Freewheel and Community Bikes. There's going to be a couple staff people there.
I'm not a trainer. I'm sorry. I'm sitting here because I forgot about Zoom.
So for everyone who has just joined us, please go ahead and mute yourself so we don't have any extraneous noises and background noises. Okay, so Mondays at 7, we've got the next 2 weeks filled. I have a couple of ideas for rounding out the month of March. And then on Tuesday mornings at 8 a.m., we have cycling chats and just a casual conversation about a variety of cycling topics. So I think this week the topic is tips for beginning and returning bicyclists. So if you're an experienced bicyclist, it's great because you can share all your wonderful tips. If you're a beginning or returning bicyclist, you can ask all sorts of questions and share information. So hopefully you'll join us. It's tomorrow at 8 a.m. And then we had Phil Campbell here last week for a special seminar on the science behind high intensity interval training. And we started a sprint cardio challenge that goes through the end of April. So you can sign up for that. If you do sign up for that, I really encourage you to watch the video of the presentation that Phil did, so you really understand the science behind it. That's a key to the success in getting all the health benefits out of it. Let's see. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And I will turn this over to Laura and Dave.
Well, thank you, Connie. I appreciate that introduction, and welcome everyone. I do not have fancy slides designed. I just didn't have time to do that, but I do want to, for those of you who are not too familiar with CIBA Foundation, I wanted to give you a little bit of background. We started, I had to write a few notes down because I'm somewhat new to the board. We were actually founded in 1996. So this is our 25th anniversary. That's one thing, it's very exciting. We're gonna think of some ways to celebrate that and just kind of use that as a device to maybe try to raise some more money and talk about that a little bit. We came into existence because CIBA, the Central Indiana Bicycling Association, had been making money from the Hilly 100 and then the night ride, and they were in the business to promote group events and group cycling events. They weren't in the business to give money away or provide granting opportunities. So they created the CIBA Foundation. It's very similar to Riley Hospital and Riley Children's Foundation, to put it in perspective. Kind of a interesting note is that CIBA and CIBA Foundation does not stand for anything. I'm not sure why. It was originally incorporated just as CIBA Foundation, not Central Indiana Bicycling Association Foundation, doing business as CIBA Foundation. But anyway, that's just kind of a point of note. A lot of people do think it does stand for the same thing. So 1 year after they were founded in 1997 is when they started giving grants away, or taking grant requests and then giving grants away. I believe the mission has changed a little bit over the years, but right now, what we give money away for is initiatives that promote cycling with an emphasis on safety. And we do try to concentrate in central Indiana. I don't know how far up or down we've granted, northern or southern part of the state, we've granted projects, but we do try to focus on central Indiana. And again, with an emphasis on safety. So when we get a grant proposals in, we have a scoring system that just since I've been on the board, they've spent a lot of time and thought into the scoring system just to make sure it aligns with the mission. For a while there, it was a little misaligned. So we have a scoring system, I think it's 1 to 5, that we score each grant on the same things, and just to keep it as fair as possible, So we have a standard way of looking at all of the grants. And then hopefully at the end of a grant review session, we've looked at everybody with the same critical eye. And right now, we do look at grants twice a year. We have the grant deadlines are February and August. There has been some talk of just accepting grants and giving out grants once a year, but right now it's still twice a year. We actually just passed a deadline for one of our grant applications, and we will be reviewing 11 grants that just came in. We'll be reviewing those at our board meeting in March. So we meet, I think, 4 times a year, and 2 of those meetings are to review grants. So it's a very methodical process. Once an organization has applied, again, they all have the same form. We look at it with the same critical eye. We all look at them before our actual grant review meeting. So we all have kind of a sense of what questions we want to ask about it, and just basically the mix up of the grants. And then hopefully by the end of that grant meeting, we will have decided. We always have kind of a cap of how much we're going to give out at that particular meeting. So we try to stay very close to that cap. And sometimes we fully fund a grant request. Sometimes we only partially fund a grant request. Like a lot of nonprofits, we don't want to be the sole source of revenue for a project. So we do like to see that a grantee has somebody requesting money does have some other lines of revenue that they're either working on or already have secured, and that's something we ask in the grant. So that's always kind of a fun meeting when we get to give out money, and then people get their checks right away. We do have a system where we request kind of grant reporting. So maybe if it's a project or an event or something we've sponsored, give us a report once it's done. We're not super formal about that yet, but we're going to get a little more formal just so, we get information back from people. If you go on our website, there's a whole grant tab, and you can even read thank you letters from grants, people that have received grants from us, and also testimonials from people that have received grants. So that's kind of fun. And if you're on our mailing list, you might get our annual report, which this just went out recently. And it lists all of our, right at the very top, everyone we gave a grant to in 2020. And then at the very bottom, this is a very cool statistic. In our 25 years, we've given out 348 grants that total $550,726. So over $500,000 in grants that we've given out. Yeah, so that's kind of the CIBA Foundation in a nutshell. I know there are other nonprofit cycling organizations out there, and I believe Connie said 9/11 Sports is coming next week. They've actually gotten money from us. They've applied. But there are not a lot of them. Most of them are cycling organizations just to promote cycling or grow the sport, or, have group events, which is all great. But we do kind of set ourselves apart that we're a nonprofit promoting cycling along the way. So, and Dolly might have something to add. I'm not sure.
I would also say that I don't know what the percentage is, Dolly, but I would say, as far as I know, almost 100% of the people who are on the foundation are cyclists themselves. And so they have an understanding of what we're looking at. Most of the time when we're looking at these grants, we can sit down and say, okay, this makes sense. We kind of understand that. We might need to ask some more clarification. But by the time we go around the table, somebody knows something about it, and has a passion for it. And they're a good group of people. They really care about cycling, and we really care about making sure that it's safety. And we get all kinds of grant requests every year, and it's a lot of fun to read through them and to see what's happening. And like Laura said, to be able to say, hey, we want to help this happen and make it go on. So I don't know if that's right, what I said, Dolly, about 100%, but it seems like it.
That's a good
It
point.
really, as far as I know, everyone is involved with cycling or has been involved with cycling in lots of different ways. We have 13 board members, most serving 3-year terms. And the odd person, the 13th member, is the immediate past CIBA president. So we have the benefit of the club, both in the general board. So for each year of term, there's one CIBA representative, and then there's the immediate past CIBA president who also serves on the board. And in many cases, that person who might normally, quote, cycle off the board because there's a new immediate past president, becomes so involved and committed to the projects that we're funding and what we're involved with that they ask to be elected to a full board position, although they're a full board member as immediate past president. I would add another comment from something that Laura said, because when I first joined the board, and I have to confess it's 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago, we used to evaluate grants on what I would refer to as gut feeling. And when you get 13 people using their personal gut to evaluate, it becomes a little problematic. And the discussion would go on at length, and then it'd be whoever maybe, I mean, I think we did good funding, that wasn't it, but we weren't at all scientific. And it's only been probably in the last 4 or 5 years that we've begun to move into, I guess, what you'd call a more scientific evaluation system, with criteria and point systems, so that people who are writing the grants really know and understand what it is we're looking for, number one, and collectively we can use the grading system to say, you know, to me this grant is very consistent with our mission, and others might not be as consistent with our mission. So I'm sort of proud of the fact that through trial and error and lots of hard work by all volunteers, that we've come to a little bit more scientific process to evaluate the grants. And I think Laura mentioned we certainly have our work cut out at our March meeting, because we actually have 11 grants that we're all in the process of reading and reviewing and supplemental documents and giving a grade to before we go on a Zoom call to then make an ultimate decision with regard to funding. So, Laura, I think you were going to maybe show some photos or pull up something on some of our grants. Am I mistaken?
Well, that was my original idea. I thought I actually had more photos than I did, but one thing I can show you is, and let me share I'm going to share my screen for just a minute but first I want to explain something. One of the things that we, make sure it's on here. Yes. Okay. So the very first one on our list, we funded a lot of things last year, but one that will have a little more, I guess, PR value is, it's actually an art mural project the city of Indianapolis launched a bicentennial project before COVID. They were gearing up for the bicentennial, of the city, but COVID kind of put a kibosh on a lot of those plans. But one thing that is still moving forward is this Bicentennial Legends Project. So it's a public art initiative facilitated by the Arts Council of Indianapolis. You've seen some of the paintings downtown already. There's Kurt Vonnegut, there's James Whitcomb Riley. There's a couple other people around. Well, they're continuing.
Reggie Miller and Mary Evans are the
Yeah, where's Reggie? I don't know if I've ever actually seen him.
Reggie's on Michigan Street,
Okay.
between Delaware and Pennsylvania.
Okay, and I've seen, I need to go look at Reggie. But anyway, the one person they were going to honor is Major Taylor, the world champion cyclist. So they approached us, and just as kind of a point, sometimes nonprofits can be guilty of mission drift. So they fund things that don't really have something to do with their mission. Someone might say that about us supporting this project, because what does this have to do about bicycle safety? However, the board had a lengthy discussion about this and just really thought the prominence of Major Taylor, the history behind it, gets people talking about cycling, that we really thought it would be something important to put our name to. And I'm going to put a link, I'll show this to you, but I'm also going to put a link in the chat. The Arts Council just had they just had a presentation where they interviewed 3 artists, and they're going to decide from those 3 which mural to actually go with, and they're accepting input from the public. So I just put, let me share my screen for a minute. I just put the link in the, in the chat there, and if you could see on my screen, it will go through and show you all the murals. This building here doesn't show the whole.
Well, good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you're streaming from. Yeah.
So that's just, I started the video by accident, but it'll be on a portion of that building, and it's pretty exciting. All 3 artists had great ideas, and so that's one of the projects that we did get behind. So if you wanted to take the time and even give your own input at the end of the video, there's some notes in the channel about how to do that. But some of the other things that we did, so I don't have any pictures, but I can tell you some of the other things we did. There is a IU Emergency Medicine. They have a kind of a bicycle fair every year at the Children's Museum, and we supplied bike helmets and personnel for that. We showed up and helped fit the bike helmets for the kids. And Richmond Parks and Recreation, we supplied a trailside bicycle service station, which I never appreciated as much, except Dave and I this fall, we were riding on, I can't remember the name of the trail up in Shipshewana, and a couple of the stops there had bicycle stations there. I said, okay, I'm pretty new to riding, so I wasn't as familiar with that. Cycling Without Age, that is a program, a really neat program to get people who are in assisted living facilities and things like that outside. They're not actually riding. There's a rider who pulls what's called a trishaw along, and the residents sit behind them, but they get out, they have their bicycle helmets on, they're riding outside, they're getting fresh air. So we've been a strong supporter of that program. And just as one other example, we funded a bicycle for Rocky Ripple Police Department, which I didn't even know they had their own police department until that grant came through. I just thought they were part of IMPD, but they made a good case in their grant how it's very helpful if you've been to that portion of the canal. That's just a great way for them to get around and help ensure the safety of everybody who uses that portion of the canal. So those are just some of the ideas of the grants that we've given out. just in as long as I've been on the board.
Having had my hand in several different bicycling organizations in central Indiana, it's nice to know that there's an organization like the CIBA Foundation and being on the board to assure you who are watching and anyone else who's going to watch us as this goes along, that it is indeed a good organization to apply for help from, because any bit of funds helps in each one of those organizations. And it's nice to know that this group exists. So.
And I really do think we fill a niche, because we fund anything from $500 to $5,000. So we're not the go-to organization if you have, you know, $100,000 project. We're probably not going to have that big of an impact on your project, but we really do fill a niche for some of these public parks, Eagle Scout projects, things like that. That really, you know, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 means quite a bit. So.
I'd also like to mention, because I'm especially proud not only about Cycling Without Age, which they mentioned, but we have helped fund adaptive bikes on the cultural trail, and also adaptive bikes through Noble of Indiana. Is that the right organization, Laura?
I believe so, yeah.
So they have a facility up in Noblesville, and we helped fund some three-wheeled bikes for some of their adult riders. And also they were able to create from their parking lot to an established trail, sort of a sidewalk link that helps those riders get to a larger trail with their three-wheeled bikes. So I guess I'm especially proud of some of those that are a little bit different. Laura also mentioned a lot of our projects are in the central Indiana area, but we were very involved a number of years ago with funding small little projects on the pumpkin vine up by Shipshewana that she was mentioning. The pumpkin vine, you know, is now well established. And when we were doing some of the funding more than 10 years ago, they would come to us with little segments, you know, in that proper quote price range that we could help. One of our grants, I think in this cycle, is for the B&O. Mm-hmm. And we've already provided at one major intersection a hawk light, which is the push button pedestrian walkway across a major street that stops the traffic for pedestrians and cyclists. And one of their grant requests that we'll be reviewing is at another location on the B&O that they feel that they need that kind of pedestrian cyclist support. It makes me think about the controversy that's continuing at 161st Street in the Monon.
I bet I know right where it is on the B&O, Dolly, too.
Yeah.
I think so.
Fair enough.
One thing, the other side to giving out money is getting money. And as I mentioned, when we were founded, it was because there was some profits made from the Hilly 100. And I'm not sure what year the night ride came along, but
not till much later. It's only about 12 years old.
Okay. So we were the beneficiaries of those events. And then through the years, ridership through the Hilly went down a little bit. This past year was non-existent because the events were canceled. So at some point, the foundation then made a purposeful effort to ask for money. We just weren't a steward of the funds from the Hilly. We had to start asking for money too. So we're growing as an organization doing that, and we're doing that in a number of ways. We solicit individual donations. We have a focused end of year giving campaign that runs from October through the end of the year, which is when most people do like to donate money. And we do that in a number of ways, some social media campaigns, some direct mail campaigns. We have not, we've gotten some corporate support, but that is an area we could work on. And then as a foundation, we can also apply to bigger foundations. I know Dolly has had a conversation with Central Indiana Community Foundation, for example. So that's something else that's kind of maybe in our future and is something that we can do as well. So yeah, so it's kind of balancing the two out, giving and getting, and most times for a nonprofit board, the #1 job of board members is raising money. So I would say that's probably the case with this board as well. So.
We'd welcome questions. Or Connie, are you doing your survey first?
Yeah, I forgot to do the survey earlier, so Laura had sent some questions, so I'll do that. We have a couple poll questions for people. I'll do my general polls just to give an idea of what's the interest levels of people. And then I'll do the poll questions that Laura sent me earlier today. Let's see.
I didn't even know that was functionality of Zoom until my first meeting with you, Connie. So I learned something.
Yeah, it's a neat thing. So, okay, so we've got, these are multiple choice, so you can check all that apply. It is your bicycling interests. So bicycling on roads, on paved paths, on natural surface trails, bicycling for transportation, bicycling with family and friends, bicycling alone. Go ahead and check whatever these things are. Bicycle touring, bicycling with groups, bicycling on organized rides, and bicycling for competition. So lots of choices. I'll give you about 5 more seconds. And then
I always wonder how many women check, I want to bicycle to work, because I can't imagine getting to work and then you have to get all, freshened up again.
oh, I bike to work all the time.
Do you really? Okay.
Yeah. And actually there's when pre-COVID, we had bike trains and we had bike and breakfast, and there were quite a few women who bike to work. So
Okay, see, I need to get with the program.
yeah, it's not hard. You should come to our we're gonna have a biking for transportation 101 lunch and learn with the YMCA at City Market.
Oh, okay.
So that will have a
Yeah.
lot of
I
information.
work downtown now, so that would be easy.
Yeah. Okay, so bicycling on roads, paved paths, and bicycling with family and friends were the most popular, and followed by bicycle touring and bike with groups. All right, so let me see what my next one was. This is more for me. How did you learn about Spotlight on Bicycling? So click all that apply, because that helps me figure out if what I'm doing is actually being effective to let people know.
I think it was your newsletter.
All right, 3 more seconds. And end the polling. So the newsletter, yay. And social media and email and staff and family and friends. So, all right. And then one more. Now this one has a couple questions. It's got 2 questions. And the first one is multiple choice and the second one is just one answer. So if you were going to be solicited for donations to CIBA Foundation, what would your preferred choice or choices be? That's multiple choice. And then the second question is, what do you think is the biggest safety concerns for cyclists in Central Indiana? That's driver education, bicyclist education, safe access to trails, roadway design, lack of bike lanes, protected bike lanes, multi-use trails, or other. So launch the polling. We'll give you about 10 more seconds. All right. Okay, 5 more seconds, and then I'm going to end the polling and share it. All right, so email is the preferred way, in person, any of the above. And then for soliciting for donations. And then lack of bike lanes, protected bike lanes, and multi-use trails are number one about the biggest safety concerns. And then followed by roadway design and then driver education. So.
This is probably not a nice thing to say, but at the moment I'm in Tucson, Arizona. Sunshine over my shoulder. And it's really quite funny to be able to say that the roads that cars go on are in worse condition than the bike lanes and bike paths in this city. They, first of all, have something called the loop, which if you were to ride it, which is kind of around the perimeter of Tucson, if you were to ride all of it, it's 140 miles.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Most of the main thoroughfares have some form of bike lane, and the map shows whether it's very narrow, like only 4 feet, or if it's wider, up to 12 feet. And it's really quite remarkable. If you're not using the bike lane on a neighborhood ride, a neighborhood area, and they have something called bike boulevards as well, then the road surface is not quite what I would refer to as chip and seal, and it's not as bad as the potholes of Indianapolis, but it's not a smooth surface. So I guess we have something to aspire to.
Well, and I'll tell you, the reason I asked that question is, you know, if any of you know of some sort of safety education that needs to be done, or safety issue that could use some money to help fix it, always let us know, because we want people to apply for our grant money. We don't, you know, sometimes we get the same people applying, and that's fine. But I also want more people to know they can apply. So if there's like just some, you know, I don't know, like if this is a dangerous intersection at the B&O, when the grant application that we're going to be looking at soon, let's say the B&O had not applied for it, but someone was riding the B&O and said, oh my gosh, you know, this is really dangerous. And you know, there's an organization like us that will grant funds to make a bike area safer. It's perfectly fine to tell that organization like the B&O, hey, did you know you can, you know, apply for a grant to maybe fix that specific situation with the CIBA Foundation. So, you know, just anytime anybody can be an ambassador for us, it's always appreciated. Both ways, either someone who may want to donate money to us, or somebody who may need money to fix, you know, a situation, or it could be just a small group that needs bike helmets. You know, always encourage them to apply for a grant through us.
Anybody with questions? I was going to say Doug's in the picture, and Doug helped us with a grant request several years ago. One of our grant requests was to be able to make some bikes at a camp safer for the kids to use. And the funding basically was for the parts that would make them safe, but obviously they needed labor. And one thing that several times we have done is offer through our relationship with CIBA, the bike club, to help find volunteers. So Doug came out to Camp Jameson Camp on the west side, if I recall correctly, right, Doug? And helped repair the bikes in the spring before the summer camp session so that they were safe and rideable for the campers. Laura mentioned the Children's Museum and the Indiana University medical residents who help with that. And we get CIBA volunteers or any volunteers who are willing to come, because we don't just hand out the helmets, we fit the helmets to the child. And as we're fitting, we talk to the children on, not dropping the helmet and how to handle the helmet, and show the parents so that the kids are wearing the helmet safely, not just, here it is, go figure it out on your own.
Yeah. Well, and I was going to say too, one way that is really easy, just reading my notes here, to help us is just, you hear this from a lot of people, follow us on social media. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. If you see that we have a post that is specifically soliciting funds, feel free to share it with anybody you think in the cycling community who would be willing to donate even $20, $30. That's always a big help. That's the best thing about social media, is how exponential it can get quickly. And then also we do want to start trying to get more corporate support. So, corporate social responsibility is a big thing today. A lot of real big companies have even corporate social responsibility officers. They have money, which is usually not out of the good of their heart. It's usually part of their marketing budget, but they still want to support a nonprofit. They have money they have to get rid of every year. So if you have anybody in your network of friends or family or connections, or just even see something that you think is a company that might align with our mission, or anything to do with fitness or getting outdoors or anything like that, you certainly don't have to call them. Just let us know, hey, I think this might be a fit. And, we just help us be eyes and ears for what's out there. So that's just another way that would be helpful. Did anybody have any other questions or?
Well, Dolly, you mentioned working on those bikes. I love working on bikes, so that was just a fun thing to do, a very fun thing to do as well. And I think it had a good impact. But are there any volunteer opportunities for a project that coming up in the near term?
Doug, are you also involved at Freewheeling?
Yes, I am. But this year with the whole pandemic, I haven't been doing very much anything. But yes, I'm still involved there.
Yeah, we haven't heard from IU. They deferred their grant from last year for the helmet fitting, and that would obviously be one where we'd need a lot of volunteers. I haven't done all my homework yet for the current grants, but I will keep you in mind if there's something there as far as bike maintenance or whatever is concerned. That's great.
Or even
Yeah,
Dolly,
please.
are we still supporting Indie Crit this year if it happens? 'Cause
Oh,
that-
yes. So
yeah,
we
we
do
support
helmet fitting also at Indie Crit, Doug. So
Okay.
there's usually a period of 2 or 3 hours that we distribute helmets and fit during the crit. So you can come down and help out and then go watch the races.
Yeah. Yeah, I volunteered down there before, and it's always fun it's a fun thing to do when you get to go and get entertained while you're volunteering. So have a fun thing to do, yeah.
Mhm.
That is fun. Well, were there any other questions about anything or any questions about how we fundraise or,
I'm sure I'm going to have plenty of questions. I just seen this group this morning, so I wanted to get on and see what you were about. But being new to the state, I'm looking to do some networking opportunities, and I believe my company might be interested in doing some donations for you as well. I've got a lot of experience in riding in major groups. I don't know if anybody's heard of the Slow Roll group out of Michigan,
yeah.
Detroit. But I was part of that group for many, many years, so I'm pretty excited. So can I reach out to somebody on Facebook through this group once I come up with all my questions?
Yeah, absolutely. For now, I can put my email in the chat here.
Fantastic.
At least you'll have a direct contact. Oops, almost ready.
And forgive my attire. I was at the gym and I forgot that it was at 7 o'clock and my alarm went off for it, so I had to jump on here at Planet.
And make sure that's right. Yep, that's it. Yeah, well, thank you.
Fantastic.
I'm proud. I've only been on the board a couple of years, but I'm proud that this organization has been around for 25 years. That's a milestone for a nonprofit. So hopefully we can keep it up for another 25 years. And it's exciting that there's so many new people riding, but I also think that makes our mission even more important because I know I'm new to riding and there's a lot I didn't know that I'm just learning. So I want to make sure that even the new people that are out there, are as safe as can possibly be. So.
Laura, we have a question in the chat. Can you talk about some more unique and or rewarding grants you've awarded here in the state?
Well, I first have to echo Dolly. I'm proud of the fact we've been able to provide some adaptive cycling. It's not just, the recreational rider. It's people that are brand new to riding and would otherwise not be able to ride a bike if we didn't provide it for them. Let me think. We are a supporter of freewheeling community bikes. If you're not familiar with that, I'm not sure who asked the question, but that's an organization that it's kind of a dual purpose. It really uses cycling and maintaining bicycles as a device to build relationships and leadership opportunities with young kids in the area. So if they're interested in cycling just a little bit, they will learn how to maintain a bike and build a bike, and then they get a bike at the end. And that's a great, that's an impactful organization because it just creates ripple effects in the community. Hopefully we're creating a love of bicycling, and that's something that can lead to lifelong fitness and just the skills that they learn along the way, building the bike and the leadership. That's hopefully something they can take into life as well. Like I said, Dolly, can you think of anything? I haven't been with the organization super long, but
in addition to freewheeling, we've been involved with smaller groups, Columbus Co-op that also does some maintenance on bikes so that they can provide them at very, very low costs. We've done similar projects. I can't remember all the cities and stuff, but you know, as I said before, we were very involved with the pumpkin vine. We've helped with things through the velodrome before Marion University took it over. Um, Marion doesn't seem to have needed our funding as much as the velodrome did when it was just part of the Parks Department. We've been involved with providing bikes. Laura mentioned Rocky Ripple. We've actually early on helped provide some of the bikes or the bike parts for IMPD's bike force. It's interesting, one fact that we found out, we started getting an awful lot of requests to help with police bikes and kind of had to put some restrictions on it. Otherwise, we felt like we were going to just be supporting police bikes. But we found out in the city of Indianapolis, they can put in requests for bikes, much the same as a line item for police cars, but there's no provision for maintenance of the bikes. And so IMPD, I know that we have helped fund on at least one occasion, just bike parts. They're policemen who know how to do the repairs, but all the parts for the repairs costs money. So it's kind of funny to think that all the maintenance that happens on police cars is not the same for police bicycles.
What about the horses? That's what I want to know. Do they have to pay their own vet bills? You know?
I don't know. We haven't had to deal with horses, thank goodness. That's not part of our domain. Those are ones that come to mind quickly. I apologize that I don't have a full list right in front of me, but you know, as Laura said, we've awarded over $500,000 in the 25 years that we've been in existence. And all of them, if you start to do the arithmetic with the fact that the largest grant is $5,000, we've made some kind of impact on an awful lot of projects, 300 and some odd projects that we've funded over those 25 years. Is that enough, John? If you go to the website, there's more lists, and I can certainly share, find more information if you have something specific you're looking for. He says, thank you. Okay.
Well, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention BGI. They've been a sponsor and a great supporter of us for a long time. So even just holding something like this, Connie, that's, you know.
Well, and Randy Clark, who is the founder and owner of BGI, was an original board member and is still an honorary board member and really has always continued to be helpful. Some of our projects we're able to really provide more resources because of discounts that BGI gives to us, to the applying grantor for parts or bicycles. So special thanks to Connie and one of her bosses, Randy.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, Randy Clark has been involved, like you said, since the beginning of CIBA Foundation. And still is very supportive. One of the other things that we do, one of the reasons why we started Spotlight on Bicycling is kind of a replacement for our Bikes and Beer event that we would hold in February. And in February, for probably the past 5 or 6 years, we would invite 5 or 6 different bicycle organizations, and they would bring items to auction off. We would solicit items from our vendors to auction off on their behalf, and then we'd get beer donated from local breweries, and people would come and bid on the, find out about the different organizations, bid on the items, purchase beer, and then they would, all of the proceeds would go to the different organizations. So we couldn't do that this year for obvious reasons. So decided to start just spotlighting the different organizations in in that. So we're happy to support. One of the other things we did that was really fun is we had bicycle wheel wreaths that we had people make, and then those got donated to CIBA Foundation, and then people came in and bought them as a donation to CIBA Foundation. I think we did that a couple of years ago. That was a lot of fun. So. So one of the things that Bicycle Garage Indy does is, besides being a bicycle retailer, is we try to be involved and supportive of the greater bicycle community, as well as get more people on bikes. So supporting those that are doing that, and also providing different opportunities for people to get involved. So we're happy to support CIBA Foundation as well.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for all your advocacy, both just for us as organization, but in general, keeping all of us informed of everything that's going on in the cycling world around Indiana and around the States. So thanks, Connie.
Absolutely.
You're welcome. There's a lot going on. It's always amazing. So, well, if there's no other questions, thank you all for joining us, and I'll send out a link to this recording. It will also be up on the Spotlight on Bicycling registration page, so you can go back and look at it as well if you want to, or share it with others.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
And we will hopefully see you next week when we spotlight 913 Sports and find out what they're doing, which is really exciting as well. So
Thanks, Laura. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks,
Thanks.
everyone.
Good night.
take
Night.
care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.